Hello everyone, my name is Akankshu Nani, and welcome to my YouTube channel Neuro Chat with AG. On this channel, I plan to cover topics that are closest to my heart and support the neurodiverse community. Topics related to neurodiversity, autism spectrum disorder, and more. On the channel, I will interview thought leaders, esteemed researchers, scientists, professors, doctors, and psychologists, seeking their views and updates on their latest work, research, etc. I will also chat with parents of neurodiverse kids and adults and talk about experiences of neurodiverse individuals. Sanjukta Banerjee is a doctoral researcher at Texas A&M University with a focus on AI workplace competency for autism. As an author and an autism parent, she brings a unique perspective to her research, blending personal experience with academic inquiry. Over the past 2 decades, she has worked in various capacities with individuals on the spectrum. As a high school special education teacher, as a clinician with a BCBA in early intervention clinics, and currently as a post-secondary transition specialist. Her fantastic book, Parenting Autism, Nurturing and Celebrating Your Unique Child, the #1 bestseller on Amazon in its category, collates the experiences of the early years and attempts to provide practical strategies to parents, teachers, and all staff members working with a child diagnosed with a developmental difference like autism. Ms. Banerjee, welcome and thank you very much for the time today.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
To start us off, could you tell us about your background and what led you to work in the field of autism?
Yes, absolutely. This was not an organic choice for me. I was a student of economics. I thought I would be studying further and researching on monetary theory. Autism happened when my son got diagnosed with autism. I had not heard of the word autism, and I felt really ashamed because I kind of thought I was reasonably well informed. I tried to keep abreast of things. But I heard that word for the first time. I was a stay-at-home mother for the 10 years after that followed initial intervention period with him. And then when I was ready to come back to work again, I felt this is all I know now. I don't know if I can ever come back to the corporate world. So that's when I got retrained. I added another master's degree, which was in autism studies, completed my BCBA, and now a researcher. So really, I fell into autism because my son fell into it, if I can call it that. But that's where it is.
And you are a behavioral analysis, so could you share a few details about your profession?
Yes. So a board certified behavior analyst, or a BCBA, it is a particular licensure. It is only with a master's degree, but there are other levels as well. My main work is with individuals with autism and other developmental disabilities. Very typically, let's say in a clinical setting, though my work would be across any setting and any ages, but it's simple to describe a clinical setting, so I'll go ahead and do that. A family would approach the clinic. We would be assessing the student, and we would be through this assessment, we would understand the strengths and the needs of that student. And we would write up a plan wherein it would have goals under 3 main categories or domains. One would be communication, second would be adaptive behavior, and third would be social skills. This is also done along with an interview with the parents in terms to kind of determine what are their needs. What are the needs as a family? What are the needs as a child? What are the main barriers, if I can call it that way. And so we would draw up that plan, and then we would implement that plan. My job then is to kind of make sure progress is on track. It's all a data-based decision making, so I'm kind of analyzing data very regularly, trend lines, progresses, averages, if any outliers, what happened that day and why are we seeing a spike or a downtrend, either way. My job also is to train. So I am not just monitoring progress, but I'm also supervising my therapists. I am training the parents and the caregivers. So we are consistent, we are uniform, we are not doing different things. So pretty much a BCBA's life in the clinic would look like that. But if it can be in a school setting as well, it's just that I'm then training teachers, I'm training paraprofessionals, and I am, monitoring students in a classroom. So slightly the setting might be different, but overall, we would have a plan for like, if behaviors of concern occur, how do we, intervene? So it's not just modifying behavior, it's teaching, so skill acquisition, as also the behavioral part.
You have always emphasized identifying early signs of autism. However, sometimes early signs can be understood as delayed learning. How do you suggest differentiating between the two?
I think the main part would be the adaptive behavior, what I just talked about, that domain. So a child with autism may demonstrate, again, okay, I'm not a in like a physician or whatever, so I'm not looking into those scientific aspects of it. As an educator, as a researcher, what I see is manifestations of behavior, so I'm just going to stick to that. So for in that adaptive behavior domain, a child with autism may have show you restrictive movements, repetitive movements. um, and I do talk about eye contact, but I'm saying it in terms of a shared or a joint attention. Um, Even though the child is not communicating, let's say verbally, they may also give you nonverbal cues of communication, that there is a back and forth of exchange going on. With a child with autism, that will possibly, you will find restrictions there. The child may have very restricted interests. They may want to play with one thing over and over again, and that may not even be a play item. That may be just a general item, and he or she is using it as a play item or for repetitive tasks. So primarily those would be, your signs would be a lot more behavioral than it would be. You may also see sensory differences in terms of some children may be sensory seeking, so they may actually go out. We call it hyperactive kids, like they are seeking movement, they are seeking touch, they're wanting, like very touchy feely, they're seeking taste, they're putting everything in their mouth. There's some others who may be very defensive. They don't want, to be touched or cuddled or hugged. They don't want, they're very picky eaters. They will gag with different kinds of food. So you'll have different, you will have signs like this. And I think those are the main distinctions.
That's something that I think often people and even myself earlier were confused about in terms of like, does sensory mean they don't like or do like textures?
It could be both. Yes.
Yeah. And my next question was, so when any parent finds out about their child being autistic, the experience is sometimes often daunting. You meet many parents and you've been there yourself. So what has your journey been like, and what is your suggestion for other parents?
Of course, it is the most difficult thing for any parent to hear. And as much as we kind of see early signs, we are trying to prepare ourselves for what we are going to hear. It's still, when it is said to you by that doctor, it is just the most difficult thing. What I would say is that take your time to accept and to come to terms with what you've just heard. This is not a life sentence that's been passed on your son or your child. What you have to remember, I think, what not you have to remember, I think that's what helped me. So let me just share what helped me. What I had to say to me is that my child is going to learn differently, and my child will, and I'm going to make that happen for him. So it's a marathon. We are not sprinting here. Really buckle up for that long ride, and that's exactly what I did. um, I am talking about like 20 years back when all this happened. So 20 years back, the resources or the availability of information regarding those resources were very, very restricted. And I did whatever I could I took about a few days to, I think, cry, say things, whatever I had to do, I did. But once that was done, I really, really fell back on plan B. But I have kept myself open to that learning. The other thing I would say is there are so many, with the availability of resources, there are so many bogus resources out there as well. People would take advantage of your vulnerability, and people would give you a lot of options. I had people who messaged me about some church, some faith-based institution, and they would put in a fish with some ash, and the child will have to ingest that fish and they will be cured. So this curing of autism becomes a big, like a marketing ploy for a lot of people. And they take advantage of that vulnerability that parents face. And for me, it was like, it had to be science-based. It had to make sense to me. I had to see results that, studies are gone on. This is how it was. And I also made sure that before my child ingested something or went into those kind of, specialized whatever treatments, um, physically there was no harm that I was intending to do. I mean, not intending, right? Inadvertently, there were no harm. So if he was drinking or eating something, I needed to see what it was. How I would think I would really be very cautious about that. So my plan was to get into evidence, like science-based practices. So that's what I did.
So your book, Parenting
Mm-hmm.
Autism, Nurturing and Celebrating Your Unique Child, is a really remarkable book. What did you write about it, and what was your vision for its impact?
Time-wise, it was COVID, so it was perfect. Everything was online. I had extra time in hands, and I said, if at all I could quickly get it done, it just worked out that way. But I think also due to COVID, a lot of people were reaching out, and from all parts of the world, really. And because again, schools and all everything stopped, and they were very, the whole situation then was such that. I think everybody just needed help. I think, let me just put it as simply as that. So one of the things that I felt always is that with my son's diagnosis, as a family, I was not willing to, because our life was, our initial part of the journey was also not very easy. My son is non-speaking. He had his measure of behaviors of concern and very, very high support needs. And so given all of that, I was still not ready to compromise on a few things which were important for our family. I liked to travel. We liked a good time outside. And I was not ready to give it all up. So I said, things have to start working out for us as a family. And he also needs to understand that, this is how we function. Traveling was not just for leisure, but also to go meet our parents and, relatives in India, which was, as you may imagine, a long flight. I mean, it was just a whole set of its own contingencies. So he had to be prepared to do that. So I think a lot of things that we did as a family was, yes, it's never a child with autism, I say, it's a family with autism. And you learn to live with that, tweaking, kind of fixing this and buffing that and polishing the other. So that's exactly what we did. And I said, why not I share our journey? And now that I am, in a clinician as well, I could kind of give the first part of the chapters, our story, and the second part of the chapter, how do I make this all happen in a natural life and natural surroundings? I say that because in the classroom, in the clinic, there is so much we can control. The teacher, the paraprofessionals, the therapists, they're all trained individuals who are working with that child in a very controlled setting. And we are expecting to see progress in there. However, at home, things are completely different. Life doesn't come to you all, organized and structured and you have to make it, you have to set it up, and it's your routine and your structure, right? You make it, and then still there are unexpected circumstances. So that's exactly what I wanted to do, is that how do you make life happen in a natural, natural setting, natural circumstances, and not stop living, like, all of us. As I said, it's a marathon. You can't just say that, oh, I'm going to do it for a year or two and then it's going to be all okay. I mean, it is all okay, but our normal is not another family's normal. It's our normal, and it's our okay, and that's absolutely fine. So that's where it came from, I think.
So you also suggest using ABA for early intervention. Can you please explain ABA and how it works?
Yeah, so applied behavior analysis, I'm just going to break down the terms, because applied is anything, any behaviors which are socially relevant. So I am not waking up in the morning and I'm not deciding that you need to do this. You have decided, or your family has decided, that these are behaviors that would be okay for our family, for our and for yourself. So those are the relevant, socially relevant behaviors we're talking about. So that's the applied. Behavior is anything an organism does, so which is observable, which is also measurable. And when I say an organism, I really don't only mean human beings. I mean animals, I mean pet trainings, and that kind of stuff as well. So anything that's observed and can be measured, that's behavior. And finally, analysis is data. Data-based decision making is a very, very important part of our field. So ABA, applied behavior analysis, therefore, by definition, doesn't restrict ourselves to only young children with autism. It can be for dog training, horse training. It can be for enhancing sports performance, HR policies. So it's organizational behavior management. So we're kind of talking about a whole range of applications. When I say also behavior is what organisms do, it's all of us included, human beings. We are not talking about special needs or special population. We're talking about everybody. So if I'm driving on the road and I see a cop car, I will adjust my speed so I don't get pulled up. You see the weather report and you say it's raining, you will take a raincoat or a umbrella and be suitably dressed. All of it, we are modifying and adjusting our behaviors with our environmental settings and conditions. And that is exactly what is behavior analysis. It was found that ABA was very effective for children with autism, and therefore it's now kind of become synonymous with ABA equals autistic children, but that's really not it. ABA is all of us included. So I do talk about early intervention, and I say that when you catch them young, I don't necessarily advocate 40-hour therapy weeks and all that, which can be the norm. I would like to believe I'm a really compassionate, ethical clinician. And I feel that stems from me being a mother who is also raising a son with autism. And I kind of see it, I see challenges, and I see that life the way I have lived it. So I kind of say, okay, if it's okay for my son to be doing that, then it's okay for you. It's in that sense. So it kind of always have that lens into my programming. So, but if you are working with children in a consistent, structured manner, applying the principles of behavior as it applies to all of us, you will see I don't want to say progress in a way. I mean, it can work for you, something that works for you perfectly fine. I don't need to come and judge it and say, oh, you change it because I said so. But it changes if you feel that something is not working for you. If your family feels, for a very young child, that this may need to work a bit differently for us, for it to work for us. And within early intervention, with structured, focused approach, I will say that, yeah, for a lot of times we do see children have transitioned from a clinic to a general ed. I mean, they didn't even need to go to It's not for everybody that it's happened, but wherever you've started, you will see a progress. So I won't say that everybody will transition into gen ed, but we've seen those, and we've seen like gone into sped curriculum, but are able to access that curriculum in a far more inclusive way than without intervention. So yeah, that is why I feel early days, early intervention, you know put it in place.
There have been some views against ABA techniques as well. What are your views on those views?
Yes, and I feel very incredibly grateful to everybody who shared those views. And I feel it is extremely important for us to understand, acknowledge, and encourage those views. We are an evolving field. What a lot of these behavior principles were put in so like decades ago. Um, Societal conditions, environment, settings were completely different then. Uh, what we are today, and we can only go and do better. What I will say is that ABA is an evidence-based uh, learning modality. Okay, time after time, years after year, we have established it to be evidence-based. Evidence-based means that given the like I have been able to replicate results. If I say this particular thing works, a particular intervention works, I have been able to replicate that result across countries, across time, across ages, and I have come to the same result. So therefore, I say that my theory is backed with evidence, enough evidence, right? However, I also feel that this is not for everybody. Okay, the spectrum is not, like a little focus. It's a big giant. People would have some strengths here, some deficiencies. I wouldn't say deficiencies, barriers or challenges somewhere else. So we're really talking about a very vast multitude of people. What works for one child may necessarily not work for another child, and they may not even need it. I've seen many people, we call it in general terms high functioning, but with higher cognitive skills, higher functioning skills. Um, they don't need a consistent, that kind of a structured, focused drilling of ABA. They need far more naturalistic training in a naturalistic setting. And, they don't need to be in the clinic with that kind of simulated, contrived situations and that kind of stuff. So it may not be for everybody, but it is an evidence-based method. And it's important for us to understand, it's important for us to take the principles of behavior analysis. Like I try to kind of always apply it in natural settings. I have to be full disclosure here. My son has never gone to an ABA clinic. I am a BCBA, but he has never gone to an ABA clinic. It's also because I think I very briefly worked in an ABA clinic years back, about 15 years back. And I really didn't like what the way things were taught back then. Whereas I work now, and I have been working with some clinics now for the last 5-6 years, and it's a completely different take. We involve, it's an involved, engaged learning, whereas in there it was like, you do because I say so kind of a thing, which I never liked. So he's never been to one. And I kind of take the principles of behavior and I apply it just like it happens in our lives, and I try to do it for my students as well. So but it is, I think, extremely important for us to listen to those voices. I want to tell all of them, your voices matter so much to us. Please keep sharing. And as clinicians, as practitioners in the field, we pledge to do better.
Speaking of things you mentioned about how there's so many different methods that works for different people, so one rule doesn't apply to all children on the spectrum. So how do you handle extreme behaviors or that may not be perceived as appropriate in public? Do you think it's okay that some parents choose to keep their kids at home mainly for those reasons?
I don't care about society's perception about anything. What I do care about is if any any behavior of concern is the child expressing. It's a communicative attempt. Let me just say that it's communication. Behavior is communication. Okay. If somebody is screaming, if a child is having a hard time and screaming, that scream means something. It's maybe he's saying, Mom, I need help, but I don't know how to say it. This is the way I manifest it. Maybe they are saying, oh, it hurts me in my stomach a lot, but they don't know how to say it. They're just screaming. So I would not, so the perception of other people on that doesn't matter to me. For me, I need to provide an outlet to that child so they can communicate and they can let me know. So how do I handle the behaviors? My first thing about the behavior, when sometimes, we do have flopping and screaming and, somebody aggressing. And my first, immediately my thing is to kind of keep that child safe, keep the, environment clear, that the child is not harmed during that process. My second thing is I understand, we call it the ABCs of behavior. What happened, what set off this behavior, and what am I doing after that this is occurring? So that I'm not reinforcing the screaming, but I'm reinforcing a communication. So I would, for a non-verbal or non-speaking students, I would give them, whether an assistive device, there are many apps which would talk for you, kind of. Basically, I would set up a communication system so that the child can now tell me that it hurts, or I want to go there and I find this math very boring, or, this very difficult. That they are able to tell me instead of showing me with their hands and feet or voice. So that's my number one thing. My second thing is that the second part of your question was whether I should keep a child home because they're demonstrating. But I need to give that again, that child, that communication outlet. So once I have given that, then you will not need to keep your child. The other thing is that, again, as I said to you, I do not like contrived contingencies in a clinic. Be out there. We've, over the years, I think I've mentioned in the book as well, is that we've had very public meltdowns, and we've had people staring at us. Even now, because my son would stim if he is happy, and we would be in public places, and he is a 6'3" and he's a not a big kid but a tall kid, and then I'm saying kid but tall adult. And I would have stares, and people would look at me. But that never mattered. I just feel that because he's exposed to a lot of, settings, things that were difficult for him before, he seeks now. He wants to go there. For example, loud noises would bother him. Now he wants to go to a stadium to watch a show. He went with me to watch Beyonce perform in Houston. And you can imagine how loud that would have been. And he loved it. He wouldn't come out. He wouldn't come back. He just wanted to be there. So he comes with me as the family for everything. And I feel that's because he has been exposed. And, if there was something that he absolutely did not like, we would not do that again. But if he's liked it and he wants it, and we keep checking with him, we would go there and do things. So initially, of course, it's very difficult. It's hard. Not saying this is an easy process, but it gets better. Once you understand it, once they understand it, it gets better. So yeah, I think that's what I feel. Take them out. It's a natural, normal life, just like any other person, and let them live. And you live too.
You have been a teacher in the special needs program. So what are your views on regular education, so-called regular education, versus special school education for children on the spectrum?
So yeah, I have been a teacher in the public school itself. The classroom there was a different classroom. We just had it was called a self-contained class, and we just had a little extra resources in terms of staffing, in terms of different ways that our students would access the curriculum. I think as educators, what we can never forget is that we have to always assume competence, that our children, our students are competent to learn, and they will learn when taught properly. So I think in grad school, one of our professors would drill it in our heads is that it's never say the student didn't learn, always say, I didn't teach. So I couldn't teach properly. So, you should always do that, like instead of saying, oh, you couldn't learn it. So with that, I feel in the special education classroom, we may teach a bit differently. So a lot of it would be hands-on interactive learning, because learning by doing is something that really sticks with them. I can explain to you math concepts or social studies or a science, but if I show it to you or show a cool science experiment to you, that sticks in your head way more than just telling you about it, reading about it, or a worksheet. So I think that aspect is important. Um, when I think in the initial year, like the elementary, even till like sixth, seventh grade, focus on academics is extremely important. I think it provides that base. You've done everything that you have, that you've given that opportunity, that access to the curriculum. Once the student is slightly older, we can also focus on vocational skills, technical skills, things like that. If you're seeing the interest, like it really depends on where the child's interest is. Um, what I also feel is that a general ed curriculum overall prepares a general ed student to go to a post-secondary education pathway, like a college or a technical school or wherever they're wanting to go after. The special ed kids accessing a general ed curriculum in whatever level, uh, where they go after they graduate, that's still a little fuzzy, because some of them will go to college, some of them may go to a technical school, some of them will go to college, community college, technical schools, some may go to those day programs, and some may just be at home. And then so then how do you prepare for which pathway they are going to, and exactly how they're going to kind of live life after, like the post school. So therein comes the transition education, and I feel that's extremely important for us to kind of the ages of 14 to 22, when transition is the main one of the main aspects of school. I think we really need to focus on that for our SPED students. Doesn't matter a general or like which school, whether it's a special school or a public school and a general classroom, special ed classroom. I think that transition should be very, very important. And we really need to focus on that for all of our SPED students.
You have been advocating for long-term employment. So how do you suggest working towards developing skills?
So let's say a student will graduate out when they're 18. Some SPED students will graduate out and age out of the school system when they're 22. So now you have about 50, 60 years of reasonably a life expectancy that you are kind of planning for long-term supports and services. So that in itself, when you think about it in that terms, it's a like imagine the lifelong supports that we're talking about. So employment therefore becomes one, a huge aspect of that puzzle. Employment, the two aspects, again, with the two things to it, one would be seeking employment, getting a job in the first place. Second would be retaining the job. Again, each of it would come with its own skill sets. But overall, what we see, or rather what I'm understanding is, what we call is executive functioning skills, the soft skills at work. Those are extremely important, critically important for our students. I have, worked on various papers or continuing to work on various papers wherein I take the perspectives of stakeholders. And you can imagine in the natural, in post school, this number of stakeholders will increase as you are going along. But one of the biggest stakeholders would be employers who are willing to employ individuals with autism in the workforce. And, we are seeing their perspectives of what they look for in an employee. And then we are also, interviewing individuals with autism and seeing what their perspectives are is, what is a good job, what is a good fit, what do they need in the workplace for them to be successful. So we're talking about accommodations in the workplace. We are talking about, skills in place, like the work ethic. If I have a 10-minute break, I don't go off for 30 minutes. I know I come back. If I don't know the answer to something, maybe I ask for help or I refer to a person, like somebody who will know the answer. I don't have to know it all. But then, there are small little things, time management, keeping up with your work, which come very naturally to maybe a lot of people. But again, for for many individuals, it has to be trained. And it can't be trained at age 22. This is a lifelong, this is like a school process as well, not just school, home, community process as well. You don't expect that child, that person to have the skills just because their age is 22. You make sure they have their skills throughout. It's like a building process. So I think one of those would be, to understand the perspectives of stakeholders, to understand the needs of the individuals, and kind of bridging it and putting it together. And this will require, from a policy, aspect of it, the legislative policy aspects, our own corporate societal community access and inclusion, and then preparation from the education part of it. Like, are we really preparing our special ed students to face the realities of post-school life? So I think there are many variables. It is complex, but we'll get there.
And to kind of expand on that same topic further, parents with autistic kids are concerned about the future often, especially when making decisions about setting up a trust or similar things. So how have you addressed the same for your kids?
I have educated myself into, what are the rules, how there are a lot of rules and legislations around this. Each state has it. This is a very state level thing. So, each state has its own kind of rules, laws, subsets on this. I would recommend really, really inform yourself, educate yourself, start early. There is a lot of parents tell me that, oh, he may not be a special ed student when he's 22. Great. So you've just kind of created a savings path, and you've just saved up some money that can never go waste, right? So that's all fine. In a state like Texas, and I know there are many states like ours, so every state has some waiver lists. The waiver lists are, there are some, very simply, some services that you may get from the government. And once your child turns 18, there are some which you can even get before. But overall, let's just, since we're talking about adulthood, let's just say 18 plus. And we need to put enroll our kids into those wait lists, into those programs. Our state in Texas, those wait lists for the waiver programs, they go up to 20 years now, anywhere between 18 to 20 years. So let's say you get the diagnosis of a child today, and that child is anywhere between 2 and 3 years old. You're going to have to wait those 18, 20 years for your child to even receive any form of services. We have enrolled our son years back, and I think we still have 8 more years to go before he can receive any services from the government. Whatever we are doing, it's private pay with private organizations. So it's very important to understand those lists, what those lists are, how you're going to, whether you're going to enroll your son or your child into whichever list. It could be employment, it could be independent living, it could be, some group activities and work. So, find out those lists, put them as applicable. There are some states which are like a few months. Our state is a good to 20 years. There are many parent support organizations, uh, and they really help you in navigating this entire future landscape. Like, so get with those organizations. They are wonderful, and they will really support and help you with how that journey and that pathway may look like. um, Financial planning, of course, is extremely important in this. You really have to, it's never, I always say it's never saving for our retirement, it's also saving for our sons, like 80 years of whatever. So then again, you plan for that accordingly. Special needs trust, special needs, make sure you have the will, you have the trust. And the other thing here is the role of siblings, because they would probably take up some of the responsibilities when we are not around anymore on planet Earth. Parents are not anymore on planet Earth. So we will also need to kind of find who all would be in that trust. So when the parents are not there, somebody else will take it up, and most people choose siblings. And they will need to kind of execute the trust and the finances in the absence of parents. So again, that's very critical to understand. To if there are no siblings, if the child is a single child, then you find your trusted members of the family who would be able to take up that job. And again, you will get with a special needs lawyer, where you will get with special needs finance, personnel or experts. And I really do strongly support a parent support organization to help navigate all of this.
Thank you. Those all seem like great feedback. How have you seen the field of autism evolve over the past 18 years? And what further changes would you like to see in the future?
Yeah, I think the main thing would be, I mean, field of autism, just what do I say, information, advocacy, availability of resources. We're just kind of becoming much more inclusive and kind of accepting towards individuals with autism, and we're doing better every day. Uh, Practices like ABA have become far more ethical, far more compassionate and humane. We are doing away with so many different behavioral practices, and we are kind of adjusting with, or rather focusing on the positive aspects of that, person-centered planning instead of somebody else planning for you. And I think this whole person-centered planning, taking charge of my life, towards an aspect of self-determination, I think those are the biggest changes. And I think I would like to kind of see, today we are talking about it like, oh, we have to be self-determined and we have to be person-centered. I just want us to start doing it, not just talking about it, start doing it. And any change can be a bit difficult. There are, we are set in our ways of, I know how to do things and I'll do it. But for this is a change in the right direction, and it needs to happen. So that's what I would like to see is going forward, is the self-determination for our students, for all individuals. And we step down from being that ableist human being, and we are just companions along the way. I can help you, but you fix what you want to do. And I think that's the best way to go about this.
And is there anything else you'd like to share with our audiences, specifically the parents or family members of autistic individuals?
I mean, I send all of you a virtual hug. So you're doing amazing. As I said earlier, it is a marathon, not a sprint. And we're in this together. It takes a village, and with kids with autism, it is a village and then some. I would only request all parents, all caregivers that take care of yourself as well. Your caregiving duties are 24/7, 365, and take care of your mental health, take care of yourself. I will talk about self-care, and I will talk about live your life too. Find a way to live your life. You're A lot of times we are so focused on our kids, everything revolves around them, and we want to keep you want to keep that. You just feel that, oh my God, you feel guilty almost that, oh, I didn't do it. But it's fine. It's going to all work out. You're doing amazing already. And so, if you are well, if you are healthy physically and mentally, then your family is healthy, then your children are healthy and they're happy. So don't forget that.
Thank you. Ms. Banerjee, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation and congratulations on your amazing success.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. I really want to congratulate you as well. You're doing an amazing job with this YouTube channel, and I wish you only success and more success in everything that you choose to do in your life.